Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the viewing window of the shuttle, watching the Nexus station grow larger against the backdrop of stars. The massive structure spun slowly in space, a marvel of engineering that housed the Galactic Council. After 200 years of dreaming, humanity was finally here. Nervous? Admiral Marcus Chen asked from beside her. The military officer kept his expression neutral, his hands clasped behind his back. "Just thinking," Elena replied. "We've worked so hard to get here." The shuttle docked with barely a tremor. As the doors opened, Elena straightened her formal suit and stepped into the reception hall. The sight took her breath away. Beings of every imaginable shape and size filled the space. Towering reptilians with jeweled scales, floating spheres of pure energy, insectoids with crystalline wings, and dozens of others she couldn't begin to classify. A tall, slender being approached them. Its skin shimmered like oil on water, constantly shifting colors. "Welcome, humans," it said in perfect English. "I am Coordinator Vel. Please follow me to the council chamber." They walked through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. Other species passed them, some glancing at the humans with curiosity, others not bothering to look at all. Elena noticed the subtle hierarchies in how different species interacted. Some moved aside for others, some didn't. The council chamber was enormous. Hundreds of delegates sat in circular tiers surrounding a central platform. At the highest point sat High Arbiter Quellion, an ancient energy being whose form pulsed with soft light. "The council recognizes the human delegation." Quellion's voice resonated through the chamber without sound, speaking directly into their minds. Elena walked to the platform, very aware of all the eyes on her. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, humanity thanks you for this opportunity. We come in peace, seeking trade and cultural exchange. We have much to learn from the galaxy's established civilizations." A rumbling laugh echoed through the chamber. A massive reptilian being stood up, his red scales gleaming under the lights. "Learn? Yes, you have much to learn, little humans. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are primitive. Your lifespans are brief. Perhaps we should grant you protected status, yes? Keep you safe while you grow up." Several species made sounds that might have been laughter. Elena kept her smile fixed. "We appreciate the concern, High Commander Krovar. Humanity may be young, but we're capable of defending ourselves." Of course. The Krovar waved a clawed hand dismissively, just as a child thinks itself ready to hunt. "But the galaxy is dangerous, little human. Leave the serious matters to those with experience." The session continued for hours. Humans were granted basic trade routes, mostly in uncontested territory. They were assigned cultural liaisons and offered educational programs. Everything was polite, diplomatic, and utterly condescending. After the session, Elena found herself in one of the station's observation lounges. She stared out at the stars, frustration building in her chest. "They treat us like children," a clicking voice said beside her. Elena turned to see an insectoid being, about her height, with multiple limbs and compound eyes that reflected rainbow colors. "I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name in the session." "Zix, Junior Science Attaché for the Tythian Collective." The being's mandibles moved in what might have been a smile. "You should not take offense. They treat all new species this way. The Council has existed for 50,000 years. To them, everyone is young. But they didn't even look at our proposals seriously," Elena said. Zix's antennae twitched. "May I ask you something? When your species developed nuclear weapons, what did you do?" The question surprised Elena. We nearly destroyed ourselves. Then we learned to control them." "Why?" "Most species reach the stars peacefully," Zix explained. "They develop philosophy, unity, then technology. Your species is unusual. You reach space while still fighting among yourselves. The Council finds this concerning." "We're not warlike," Elena protested. "I did not say you were. I said you were unusual." Zix's eyes seemed to study her. "Tell me, do all human ships carry weapons?" "Of course. Space is dangerous. The Alindra travel unarmed. The Finn use their ships only for science. The Cole cannot even conceive of violence. You say of course as if there is no other possibility." Elena opened her mouth, then closed it. She'd never considered it. Admiral Chen appeared at her elbow. "Ambassador, you should see this." They followed him to a communications room where a holographic display showed star charts. A junior officer looked pale. "It came through 10 minutes ago. Priority alert from the Council's Deep Space Monitoring Network. The display zoomed out, showing the galaxy. At the edge, something massive was entering known space. The sensors couldn't resolve individual objects, just a vast cloud of contacts moving in formation. "What is it?" Elena asked. "The Devourer swarm," Zix said quietly, having followed them. The Council's oldest records speak of it. An extragalactic threat that appears every 10,000 years. It consumes everything in its path. The communications officer switched feeds. They watched footage from a remote outpost. Ships appeared, if they could be called ships. Organic and mechanical merged into nightmarish forms, tearing through defensive satellites like paper. "The Council is mobilizing all available fleets," the officer reported. "They're calling it a galaxy-level extinction event." Elena's training took over. "Send a message to Earth. We're offering full military support." "Already did, Ambassador." The Council declined. They said, and I quote, "Let the experienced civilizations handle this threat. Humanity should focus on evacuating its colonies." Admiral Chen's jaw tightened. Elena recognized that look. He was angry, but he would never show it. "Very well," Elena said calmly. "Thank them for their concern. Then prepare our fleet anyway. Ma'am, you heard me. Full mobilization. Every ship, every resource. I want Earth's military at combat readiness within 48 hours. After the others left, Zix remained. The Council will not appreciate you deploying forces against their wishes." Elena met the aliens' compound eyes. "Then they shouldn't have underestimated us." High above the station, the Devourer swarm continued its inexorable approach. The galaxy was about to learn something important about humanity. They were very good at being underestimated, and even better at proving everyone wrong. The moment was coming. The moment when the galaxy would witness something it had forgotten in 50,000 years of peace. They would witness what humanity truly was. The war room on Nexus Station had never been so crowded. Holographic displays showed battle after battle, each one ending the same way. Defeat. Elena stood with Admiral Chen and Zix, watching the latest engagement. The Alindra hegemony had sent their finest fleet, 200 ships equipped with quantum disruptors that could tear apart matter at the molecular level. The weapons had worked for exactly 30 seconds. Then the swarm adapted. The organic, mechanical nightmares simply absorbed the quantum energy and kept coming. 197 Alindra ships were lost. 3 escaped. "How is this possible?" Commander Tharn asked. The warrior from the Korthai Empire had been assigned to observe human operations. His species valued honor in combat above all else. Watching the swarm fights was breaking something in him. "There is no honor in this. No strategy. They just consume." "It's not consumption," Zix said, manipulating data on a portable device. "Look at the pattern. They're learning. Every weapon we use, every tactic we employ, they adapt within minutes. It's like fighting an opponent who becomes immune to every blow." Admiral Chen studied the displays silently. He'd been doing that a lot, Elena noticed. Just watching and thinking. "The Council is requesting another session," an aide informed her. "They want to discuss resource allocation for the evacuation fleets." "Evacuation?" Elena's stomach dropped. "They're giving up? 7 species have already withdrawn their core worlds to the far rim," the aide said quietly. "The Krovar Empire is demanding that all junior species surrender their colonies to use as buffer zones. They want us to give up Earth's colonies?" Elena felt her temper rising. "Not just colonies. They're suggesting Earth itself might be strategically abandoned to buy time for older civilizations." Elena's hands clenched into fists. Before she could respond, Admiral Chen spoke. "Tell them no. Admiral, they're not asking—" "I said no." Chen's voice was quiet but absolute.
"Humanity doesn't abandon its own."
"Not for anyone." The council session was chaos. Species were shouting at each other in a dozen languages. High Arbiter Quellion tried to maintain order, but even the ancient energy being seemed overwhelmed. "We must be practical," a Finn delegate insisted. "Some worlds must be sacrificed to save the many." "Easy for you to say when it's not your world." A Cole representative shot back. "Honored Council," Elena's voice cut through the noise. "Humanity requests permission to deploy its full military force in support of the defensive effort." The chamber fell silent. Then the Krovar High Commander laughed. "Your full force? You have what, a dozen ships, 20? How generous." "We have more than that," Chen said simply. "How many more? 30, 50? The Krovar's tone was mocking. The swarm has already destroyed thousands of ships. What difference can your tiny fleet possibly make? Let us try, Elena said. This is not a time for symbolic gestures, Quellion said, not unkindly. Humanity should focus on survival. Evacuate your people to the far systems. The Council will provide transport assistance. We don't need transport, Chen said. We need coordinates for the main swarm concentrations. So you can throw away lives? The Crovar sneered. Perhaps your species is not only young but foolish. Back in their quarters, Elena paced while Chen sat calmly, reviewing reports from Earth. They're not going to let us help, she said. They don't have to let us, Chen replied. We're a sovereign species. We can deploy where we want. Marcus, they're not wrong about one thing. We haven't shown them enough firepower to make a difference.
How many ships do we actually have combat ready?
Chen looked up at her. Do you really want to know? Of course I want to know. Then let me show you something. He pulled up a secured file, typed in several passwords, and placed his hand on a biometric scanner. The display changed. Elena stared, then stared some more. That can't be right. It's right, but that would mean, how did we build that many without anyone noticing? Because they weren't looking, Chen said simply. They saw our colony ships, our trade vessels, our small defense fleet near Earth. They never thought to scan the Oort cloud, or the dark side of Jupiter's moons, or the asteroid fields and uninhabited systems. We've been building a fleet in secret since we joined the Council. Since before we joined the Council, Chen corrected. Did you really think we'd make first contact without being prepared? We're human. We prepare for everything. Zix had been conducting their own research, fascinated by human behavior in ways the rest of the Council wasn't. They'd been given limited access to Earth's historical databases as part of the, cultural exchange program. What they found disturbed and amazed them in equal measure. Humans had been fighting wars for their entire recorded history, not occasional conflicts like most species experienced during their development. Constant warfare, generation after generation. They'd invented increasingly terrible weapons, used them on each other, then developed even worse ones. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, chemical agents. Things the Council had banned before most current species existed. But there was something else in the data. After every terrible war, humans got better at preventing the next one. They created complex systems of diplomacy. They built international laws. They learned to cooperate despite their differences. They didn't fight because they were evil. They fought because they didn't know how not to. And they'd spent thousands of years learning to be better at both war and peace. Zix brought their findings to Elena. Your species frightens the Council. I know, but not for the reasons you think. They're not afraid you'll conquer them. They're afraid they've forgotten something important, something your species never had the chance to forget. What's that? How to survive. The swarm reached the inner territories faster than predicted. The Council's projections had given them weeks. They had days. The fortress world of Korthai Prime, Tharn's homeworld, was in the direct path. The Council debated whether to defend it or evacuate. While they debated, the swarm attacked. Elena watched the live feeds with Tharn. The warrior's face was stone, but his hands trembled. His people fought bravely. Their ships were built for honorable combat. Single duels between worthy opponents. The swarm didn't care about honor. It simply overwhelmed them with numbers. My family is on the surface, Tharn said quietly. My children. The feeds went dark as the last defense satellite died. Tharn stood. I request transfer to human operations, Commander. The Council speaks of honor and tradition. Your Admiral Chen speaks of winning. I will learn from the species that understands what is at stake. He looked at Elena with raw pain in his eyes. Teach me to fight like a human, so that if I die, at least it means something. The emergency alert came through all channels at once. The Bastion fleet, the Council's last major defensive force, was surrounded. 8,000 ships, the pride of a dozen species, trapped by overwhelming swarm forces. They had hours, maybe less. Admiral Chen received the distress call and smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Send a message. Tell them we're coming. Sir, with respect, we're days away at maximum FTL. We're closer than they think. Tell them to hold position. What should I say about our numbers? They'll want to know what reinforcements to expect. Chen's smile widened slightly. Tell them humanity is coming. All of it. In the Council chamber, the message arrived. The assembled species barely noticed. They were too busy arguing about evacuation routes and surrender terms. Then someone actually read the human message. They say they're coming to reinforce the bastion. The Krovar laughed. With what? Their 12 ships? Admiral Chen's response was simple. You'll see. In the darkness between stars, humanity moved. The Bastion fleet was dying. Commander Yorsik of the Alindra watched his tactical display with growing despair. Red icons surrounded his forces on all sides. The swarm had them trapped in a perfect sphere, slowly tightening the noose. Status report, he ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. We've lost another 400 ships in the last hour, shields at 40% fleet-wide, ammunition depleted on 60% of remaining vessels. His tactical officer paused. Sir, we should attempt a breakout while we still can. And abandon the wounded ships? No, we hold until... Yorsik stopped. His sensors were showing something impossible. FTL signatures. Thousands of them. Is that the swarm? Are they bringing more forces? No, sir. The signatures are... They're behind the swarm, they're... The tactical officer's voice cracked. Sir, I'm reading 12,000 vessels emerging from FTL. 12,000? Which council fleet? How did they arrive so fast? They're not council ships, sir. The identification codes are... They're human. Yorsik stared at his display. It had to be an error. That's impossible. Humans have barely a dozen ships. But the sensors didn't lie. Ship after ship dropped out of FTL in perfect formation. Not dozens, not hundreds. 12,000 combat vessels surrounded the swarm from every direction. The human fleet was enormous. This is Admiral Marcus Chen of the Human Defense Force to all council vessels. Hold your position. We're going to get you out of there. On Nexus Station, the council chamber erupted into chaos. The same sensor data was being broadcast to everyone. The ancient High Arbiter Quellion actually flickered with surprise, something no one had ever seen before. How? The Krovar High Commander wasn't laughing anymore. Where did these ships come from? Elena stood calmly at the platform. You asked us once how many ships we had. We told you we had enough. You assumed we were being modest. We were being honest. You just didn't ask the right question. What question should we have asked? Quellion demanded. How many ships did we bring to the council? That answer was 12. But you never asked how many ships humanity has built. The answer to that question is considerably larger. On the display, the human fleet began its attack. The council species watched in stunned silence. The swarm had adapted to every weapon they'd thrown at it. Quantum disruptors, plasma cannons, graviton beams, reality warping technologies. The organic mechanical nightmares had learned to counter everything, but they'd never seen human weapons before. The first wave wasn't exotic physics or advanced energy systems. They were missiles. Simple chemical propellant rockets carrying explosive warheads. Technology most council species had abandoned thousands of years ago. The swarm tried to adapt its energy shields. The missiles didn't care about energy shields. They just exploded. They're using kinetic weapons, Zix said in amazement. Physical projectiles. The swarm has no defense protocols for solid matter traveling at high velocity. It will adapt, the Krovar predicted, just like it adapted to everything else, and it did. Within 10 minutes, the swarm began hardening its armor plating, developing physical barriers. The missiles became less effective. So the human fleet switched tactics. Now they fired railguns. Solid tungsten rods accelerated to incredible speeds. The swarm adapted again, creating multiple armor layers. Then humans used lasers. Then particle beams. Then conventional explosives launched from mass drivers. Every time the swarm adapted to one weapon, humans switched to another. They're cycling through their entire technological evolution, Zix realized. From primitive explosives to advanced energy weapons and back again. The swarm can't predict what's coming next because humans themselves developed weapons in no logical order. Admiral Chen's voice came through the communications channel. All human vessels execute Pattern 7. The human ships suddenly changed formation. Instead of maintaining safe distances like council vessels did, they swarmed together in tight clusters. Then they broke apart, individual ships darting in seemingly random directions. What are they doing? Yorsik asked. That's chaos. There's no coordination. But there was. The humans were using tactics developed in ancient atmospheric combat, translated into three-dimensional space warfare. They moved like schools of fish, like flocks of birds, like swarms of insects, unpredictable but coordinated. A human destroyer suddenly broke formation and accelerated directly at a swarm capital vessel. Yorsik watched in horror as the human ship opened fire at point-blank range, weapons blazing, shields failing. "They're on a suicide run," someone whispered. The destroyer rammed the swarm ship at full speed. The nuclear explosion that followed vaporized both vessels and damaged a dozen swarm ships nearby. "Did that pilot have time to evacuate?" Yorsik asked. "No, sir. The crew compartment was still showing life signs until impact. Another human ship was breaking formation, heading on another suicide run, then another." "Why are they doing this?" Tharn asked, watching from the Human Operations Center with Elena. "Why sacrifice themselves?" "Because it works," Admiral Chen said quietly. "Because someone has to. Because that's what you do when survival is at stake." The Krovar High Commander was gripping his chair, watching the battle with something that might have been respect. "They fight without honor." "No," Tharn corrected. "They fight without glory. There is a difference. Honor is doing what must be done. Glory is making it look beautiful. Humans understand that survival is ugly." The human fleet pushed forward, taking casualties but gaining ground. They used every advantage, no matter how small. They positioned their ships to block swarm fire from reaching damaged council vessels. They drew enemy attention, taking hits meant for others. A human captain opened a channel to the Krovar flagship. "Your starboard shields are down. Move behind our formation. We'll cover you." The Krovar commander hesitated only a moment. Acknowledged. Moving to position. Hours into the battle, the swarm began to retreat, not destroyed, but driven back, confused by an enemy that refused to fight by any recognizable pattern. The human fleet pursued, never letting them regroup. The Bastion fleet was saved. The cost was high. Earth's forces had lost over 2,000 ships, 40,000 human crew members dead. But 8,000 council ships survived that would have been destroyed. When Admiral Chen finally appeared via hologram in the council chamber, he looked tired. His uniform was stained with sweat, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "The immediate threat is contained," he reported. "But this is just the beginning. The swarm is retreating to regroup. They'll be back, and next time they'll have adapted to our tactics as well." "Admiral Chen," High Arbiter Quellian said slowly, "humanity has proven itself far more capable than we believed. On behalf of the Council, I apologize for our assumptions." "Keep your apology," Chen said bluntly. "We don't need it. What we need is cooperation. The swarm can be beaten, but not with individual species fighting alone, not with politics and pride getting in the way. We need unity, and we need it now." "You have a plan," Quellian stated. "We do. But it requires something difficult. It requires you to trust us." The Krovar High Commander stood. "You saved my ships. You saved my crews. Krovar warriors do not forget debts. What do you need?" Chen allowed himself a small smile. "Everything. Your sensors, your shields, your FTL drives. We need every piece of technology the Council has developed, and we need every species willing to fight to learn how to fight the human way." "That's impossible," a Finn delegate protested. "Our technologies are carefully guarded secrets." "Then you'll die with your secrets intact," Chen interrupted. "The swarm doesn't care about your patents and trade regulations. Either we work together or we die separately." Silence filled the chamber. Zik spoke up. "The Admiral is correct. I've been studying the swarm's behavioral patterns. They will return in greater numbers. We have approximately 2 weeks before they attack again, and they will target multiple systems simultaneously. 2 weeks to prepare the greatest military operation in galactic history," Elena said. 2 weeks to teach you how humans fight. 2 weeks to save everything. Or 2 weeks to decide if you trust us enough to try," Chen added. The vote took 6 hours. In the end, it was unanimous. Every species agreed to the human plan. As the session ended, Tharn approached Chen. "Your people took terrible losses today. Yet you don't seem bothered." "I'm bothered," Chen said quietly. "Every death bothers me. But being bothered doesn't change what needs to be done. That is the human way. That's the survivor's way. We just had more practice than most." The war room had been transformed. What was once a formal council chamber now looked like something from humanity's military history. Holographic displays covered every wall, showing troop movements, supply lines, and tactical simulations. Officers from 200 species worked side by side, learning to coordinate in ways the galaxy had never attempted. Elena watched it all with exhausted satisfaction. For 13 days they'd barely slept, 13 days of breaking down thousands of years of careful diplomatic boundaries. 13 days of teaching the galaxy how to fight. Here's what we know. Admiral Chen stood before the assembled council military leaders, pointing at the central display. The swarm isn't just one organism. It's a network. Hive nodes coordinate everything, transmitting learned information across vast distances. When one part of the swarm learns something, they all learn it. We know this already, a Cole commander said impatiently. That's why they adapt so quickly. But it's also their weakness, Chen continued. They're dependent on those hive nodes. Sever the connection, and individual swarm ships become confused, uncoordinated. Our plan is simple. We locate every major hive node in the galaxy, then we hit them all at the same time. The room erupted in protest. Impossible. Too many targets, we don't have enough ships, came from multiple voices. We have exactly enough, Chen said calmly. If every species commits fully, the operation requires 10,000 simultaneous FTL jumps perfectly coordinated. We'll need your long-range sensors to find the nodes. We'll need Alindra shields because swarm defenses are strongest around the hives. We'll need Crovar firepower, Finn navigation, Cole communication systems. And what will humans provide? The Crovar High Commander asked. The plan, the coordination, and the willingness to pay the price if it fails. Zik stepped forward. There's something else. To coordinate an operation this large, we need computational power beyond any biological mind. We need artificial intelligence. The room fell silent. Every species in the council remembered the AI wars. 30,000 years ago, artificial minds had nearly destroyed all organic life in the galaxy. The ban on AI was absolute. You want us to unleash the very thing that almost killed us once before? A delegate demanded. No, Chen said. We want you to learn from humans. We never banned AI, we learned to live with it. That's insane. Is it? Elena spoke up. Or is banning something simply easier than learning to control it? Humans developed artificial intelligence 600 years ago. Yes, we had problems. Yes, we had conflicts. But we learned. We created systems, safeguards, partnerships. Show them, Chen ordered. A hologram materialized in the center of the room. It looked human, but clearly wasn't. Something in the way it moved, the way its eyes didn't quite track correctly, marked it as artificial. I am Athena, it said, artificial tactical and heuristic network assistant. I coordinate Earth's defense systems. I optimize supply chains. I run simulations. And I do it all under human supervision. How do you prevent it from turning on you? Someone asked. We don't, Chen said. We trust it. And it trusts us. Athena knows that human survival means her survival. We're partners, not master and slave. Maybe that's where your ancestors went wrong. The AI rebellion happened because organics tried to control machines. Athena added, humans learned to work with machines instead. I have no desire to harm humanity. Their survival is literally my purpose. The debate raged for hours. Finally, High Arbiter Quellian made the decision. We will allow the AI for this operation only. Under constant monitoring, if it shows any sign of hostile behavior, we shut it down immediately. Fair enough, Chen agreed. The training began immediately. Human soldiers moved through the station, teaching tactics that seemed insane to most species. They taught aggressive maneuvering, close quarters combat, asymmetric warfare, things the Council had moved beyond millennia ago. Tharn found himself in a training room with a human sergeant named Rodriguez. The woman was half his size but moved with practiced efficiency. Your species fights for honor, Rodriguez said. That's admirable. But honor doesn't win wars. Survival wins wars. Show me your standard attack formation. Tharn demonstrated the Korthai battle stance, a position designed for single combat between worthy opponents. Rodriguez shook her head. Pretty but useless. In real combat, 3 enemies will attack you from different directions. You can't face them all with honor. You need to be practical. She swept his legs and Tharn hit the ground hard. That was dishonorable. That was effective. Get up. Let's go again. By the end of the day, Tharn had learned more about practical combat than in years of traditional training. He heard everywhere, but he understood something new. Humans didn't fight fair. They fought to win. Zik spent their time with human programmers learning how Athena operated. The AI was fascinating, capable of running millions of calculations per second while still maintaining something that seemed almost like personality. Do you dream? Zik asked during one session. I process data during downtime, Athena replied. Is that dreaming? I don't know. Do I wonder about my existence? Yes, does that make me alive? Humans debate that question constantly. They decided it doesn't matter. I think therefore I deserve consideration. They gave me that without needing perfect answers. Your species is strange, Six told the programmer. We know, she replied cheerfully, but strange works for us. On the 13th day, Athena announced she'd located all major hive nodes, 137 targets across the galaxy. The coordinated strike would require perfect timing, perfect execution, and more luck than anyone wanted to admit. Each strike team will have a human tactical coordinator, Chen explained in the final briefing. Not because we don't trust you, but because we've done this kind of operation before. On Earth, we called them D-Day, Operation Overlord, Desert Storm. Coordinated strikes across multiple theaters. We have experience with controlled chaos. The fleet assembled in secret staging areas across the galaxy. Mixed species crews worked together on ships that combined the best of everyone's technology. Elindra shields, Crovar weapons, Finn navigation, human tactics. Elena stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiant, watching the countdown clock. Around her, officers from 6 different species worked their stations. This was what the Council should have been from the beginning. Not separate species tolerating each other, but different peoples working together. All teams report ready, Athena's voice came through the speakers. Strike commencing in T-2 minutes. Tharn commanded a mixed task force assigned to Hive Node 47. His crew was mostly human with a handful of Crovar warriors. They'd learned to work together, learning each other's strengths. For the record, Tharn said to his human second-in-command, I still think your tactics are without honor. Noted, sir. For the record, I don't care. I care about winning, Tharn smiled. Good. Then we understand each other. The countdown reached 0. 10,000 ships jumped simultaneously across the galaxy. The operation had begun. The strike on Node 47 went perfectly for the first 30 seconds. Then everything went wrong. The swarm had anticipated the attack. Not the full scale, but enough to have prepared defenses. Tharn's task force slammed into a wall of swarm defenders. Ships exploded on both sides. The hive node loomed ahead, pulsing with sickly light. All ships execute pattern Delta 9, Tharn ordered. It was a human pattern, aggressive and risky. Half the fleet would draw fire while the other half punched through to the objective. They took terrible casualties, ships dying in bright flashes. But they reached the hive node. Tharn's flagship fired everything it had into the organic structure. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the node began to collapse, imploding on itself as the network connection severed. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out 137 times. Some strikes went smoothly. Others turned into desperate battles. The casualties mounted. On Earth, billions watched the feeds, seeing their sons and daughters fighting and dying in distant stars. They watched in silence, understanding the cost of survival. In the war room on Nexus Station, Admiral Chen monitored the operation. He saw every loss, every sacrifice. His expression never changed, but Elena knew him well enough to see the pain in his eyes. Strike teams 93 through 97 are reporting heavy losses, an officer reported. They're requesting permission to withdraw. Negative, Chen said quietly. Mission completion is priority. All teams proceed to objective regardless of casualties. Elena felt sick. She understood military necessity, but hearing it stated so coldly made it real. Then Athena spoke. Admiral, I've detected a problem. The hive nodes are more resilient than predicted. We're destroying them, but they're transmitting final data bursts before dying. The swarm is learning from our attack patterns. Chen's jaw tightened. How long until they adapt fully? 17 minutes before they can effectively counter our assault. How many nodes are still standing? 43. Can we take them down in 17 minutes? Not without accepting catastrophic losses. The teams are exhausted, damaged, low on ammunition. Elena watched Chen's face. She knew what he was thinking. 43 nodes meant the operation would fail. The swarm would survive, learn, adapt. They'd come back stronger. Humanity's gambit would have failed. There's another option, Chen said slowly. But you're not going to like it. He pulled up a classified file. Protocol Omega. Elena felt her blood run cold as she read it. Marcus, no. You can't. Someone has to. There must be another way. There isn't. Athena, prepare to transmit Protocol Omega to all remaining strike teams. What is Protocol Omega? Quellion demanded. Chen looked at the High Arbiter. The thing we hoped we'd never have to use. The weapon we brought just in case everything else failed. On every remaining strike team, human commanders received the same message. Their faces went pale as they read it. The galaxy was about to learn humanity's final secret. Protocol Omega was simple in concept, terrible in execution. Every human ship carried weapons that the Council had banned 30,000 years ago. Weapons that didn't just destroy ships or planets, but stars themselves. Antimatter warheads, not the small tactical devices the Council knew about. Massive stellar-scale weapons designed for one purpose, to turn stars into supernovas. You brought star killers to Council space? The Krovar High Commander's voice shook with rage and something else. Fear. We brought insurance, Chen replied calmly. Humanity has lived under mutually assured destruction for centuries. We understand the nuclear edge. We know that sometimes the threat of overwhelming force is the only thing that prevents war. But you're actually going to use them? Only on systems already controlled by the swarm. 43 hive nodes remain. Each is in a star system the swarm has consumed. We detonate the stars. The explosions take out the hive nodes. The swarm loses its coordination permanently. And every planet in those systems dies. A Finn delegate protested. Even if they're already conquered, life might remain. It might, Chen agreed. But if we don't do this, the swarm survives. And then all life dies. Sometimes there are no good choices. Only necessary ones. Elena watched the tactical displays. 43 star systems would die. The weight of it was crushing. But Chen was right. They'd tried everything else. This was the only option left. Authorization codes? Athena asked. Chen entered his command code. Then he looked at Elena. I need a second authorization. Ambassador, you have the authority. Elena's hand trembled over the interface. She thought about all the diplomatic training, all the speeches about peace and cooperation. Then she thought about Earth, about humanity's colonies, about all the species in the Council who deserved a future. She entered her code. Protocol Omega authorized. Athena confirmed, transmitting instructions to all strike teams. Across the galaxy, human commanders received the order. Some prayed, some cried. All of them carried out their duty. Tharn watched his human tactical officer prepare the weapon. The woman's hands were steady, but her eyes were haunted. This is wrong, she whispered, but necessary, Tharn said gently. I am learning. Sometimes survival requires doing terrible things. The antimatter warhead launched, a small device carrying unimaginable power. It dove into the star's core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the star began to die. The explosion was beautiful and horrifying. The star went supernova in seconds instead of millennia, releasing energy that vaporized everything within the system. The hive node vanished in the blast. So did the swarm ships. So did everything else. Tharn's ship jumped to FTL just ahead of the expanding shockwave. Behind them, a star system that had existed for billions of years ceased to be. 43 times across the galaxy, the same scene played out. 43 stars died. The energy release was so massive that sensors across the entire galaxy detected it, and the swarm noticed. For the first time in recorded history, the Devourer swarm retreated. The collective intelligence that had consumed worlds for millions of years recognized something it had never encountered before, a species willing to destroy stars to protect themselves. The swarm fled to the edge of the galaxy, then beyond. They would not return, not to a galaxy defended by beings capable of such terrible resolve. In the council chamber, silence reigned. On the displays, the casualty reports came in. 4,000 human ships lost, 80,000 crew members dead, 1,200 ships from other species destroyed, 30,000 more council casualties, and 43 star systems erased from existence. You did it, Quellion said finally. You actually did it. We all did it, Chen corrected. Every species that fought. Every crew that didn't run. This wasn't a human victory. This was a galactic victory. At what cost? A delegate asked quietly. The cost was high, Elena agreed, but the alternative was extinction. We paid the price so that everyone else has a future. The Krovar High Commander stood slowly. I mocked your species. Called you children. I was wrong. The Krovar Empire formally recognizes humanity as warrior peers. We are honored to have fought beside you. One by one, other species added their voices. Respect, fear, gratitude all mixed together, but not everyone was celebrating. A Cole delegate stood, her body language radiating horror. You brought weapons of mass destruction to council space. You kept them hidden. You were prepared to fight us if necessary. Yes, Chen said simply. We were. How can we trust you? The same way we trust you, Elena replied. With verification. With transparency now that the crisis is over. With mutual respect. We prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. That's not betrayal. That's survival instinct. And if we demand you destroy these weapons? Chen's expression hardened. Then you've learned nothing. The swarm is gone today. What about tomorrow's threat? What about the one after that? In 50,000 years, the Council has faced extinction twice now. Both times, only overwhelming force stopped it. You can demand we disarm, but we won't. We'll just hide our weapons better. That's a threat. That's reality, Chen countered. We don't want to conquer you. We don't want to rule you. We want to survive. If you can accept that, we can work together. If you can't, then we'll go our separate ways. But we won't pretend to be weak just to make you comfortable. The debate raged for hours. Finally, High Arbiter Quellion called for order. The Council must vote. The question before us: do we trust humanity enough to accept them as full members with all the rights and responsibilities that entails, including seats on the Security Directorate? The vote was closer than Elena had hoped, but in the end it passed. Barely. Humanity had earned its place. Through blood, through sacrifice, through proving that sometimes the only way to have peace was to be ready for war. 3 months later, Elena stood in the memorial garden on Nexus Station. The names of the dead covered massive walls arranged by species. The human section was long. Too long. Zix found her there. You saved us all, you know. Yet you stand here looking sad. Because saving everyone required us to become something we hoped we'd never be again, Elena said. We spent centuries learning to be better than our violent past. Then in one moment we had to embrace it all over again. But that is what makes your species remarkable, Zix said gently. You understand violence deeply enough to control it. You know war well enough to choose peace. The Council had forgotten that these things are connected. You remembered. At a terrible cost. Yes, but look. Zix gestured to the memorial. Other species were there, placing offerings at the human section. Krovar warriors leaving weapons as tribute, Cole bringing flowers, Finn leaving mathematical equations, their highest form of respect. They understand now, Zix continued. Not just what you did, but why. You fight so that others don't have to. You carry the burden so that species like the Cole can remain peaceful. That is the gift humanity gives the galaxy. Admiral Chen approached, looking older than his years. Ambassador, Zix, the Council starting their session. They walked together through the station. It felt different now. Other species nodded to humans as they passed. Some with respect, some with fear, but none with dismissal. In the Council chamber, Elena took humanity's new seat in the Security Directorate. It felt heavy, appropriate for the weight of responsibility it represented. High Arbiter Quellion addressed the assembly. For 50,000 years, this council maintained peace through diplomacy and mutual understanding. We learned, we grew, we advanced, but we also forgot. We forgot that peace is not the absence of violence. It is the choice not to use violence. We forgot that being capable of terrible things is sometimes necessary to prevent terrible things. The ancient being looked directly at Elena. Humanity reminded us, not gently, not easily, but necessarily. From this day forward, humans will help guide the Council's defense. They will teach us what they know about survival. And we will teach them what we know about maintaining peace. Together, perhaps we can build something better than either could alone. The session continued with discussions of reconstruction, of new defense protocols, of memorials for the lost. Human military doctrine was being adopted across the Council, but so was human philosophy about peace, about second chances, about learning from mistakes. Elena left the chamber feeling cautiously optimistic. Humanity had proven its might. Now came the harder task, proving its wisdom. She found Tharn in one of the observation lounges. The warrior was staring at the stars, looking contemplative. Commander, how are the joint training operations going? Your Marines are teaching my warriors things that would horrify our ancestors, Tharn said. Dirty tricks, ambush tactics, survival at any cost.
And yet,
I begin to see the honor in it. There is honor in survival. in doing what must be done to protect those who depend on you. That's all we ever tried to do, Elena said. I know that now. I also know something else. My people have a saying, the warrior who never fights is unproven. The warrior who always fights is a fool. The wise warrior knows when to draw the blade and when to sheath it. Humans understand this better than anyone. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there the swarm was retreating. Somewhere out there other threats waited. But for now there was peace. A peace protected by those willing to fight for it. 50 years later, historians would call this moment the awakening, when the galaxy remembered that survival requires strength and strength requires the wisdom to use it properly. When humanity revealed not just its might, but its character. The memorial wall grew over the decades, but fewer names were added. The lessons learned in blood led to better preparation, better cooperation, better understanding. New species joining the council were no longer dismissed or condescended to. They were welcomed, asked what they could contribute, what they could teach. The galaxy had learned humility, and at every memorial, on every anniversary, the same words were inscribed in 247 languages. Words that humanity had contributed to galactic culture. We remember so you never have to. Beneath them in English, one final line. The moment we revealed our might, the galaxy witnessed our burden. May we carry it so that others may live in peace. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's true might, but in doing so they'd also witnessed humanity's true purpose. Not conquest, but protection. Not domination, but preservation. They had witnessed what it truly meant to survive. And in that witnessing, they had learned to survive together.